Resuming debate, the honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to rise today to speak about Budget 2012 on behalf of the residents in my riding of Palliser in southern Saskatchewan. Our government has developed a positive, responsible plan to help keep Canada's economy growing, fuel jobs for creation, and secure the long-term prosperity for Canadians. It is a solid plan that will help business and individuals within my riding and within Saskatchewan and indeed within the boundaries called Canada. In the international finance community, there's admiration for Canada's stable position. These accolades include the World Economic Forum, stating our banks are the soundest in the world, Forbes magazine ranking Canada as the best place in the world to do business, to grow business, and to create jobs. In fact, since July 2009, our economy has created more than 700,000 net new jobs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to talk about 4 parts of the budget that we see in 2012 that will support business, families, and communities in my riding. These parts are: first, number 1, creating a more efficient immigration system; number 2, managing our resources better; number 3, expanding our trade opportunities; and number 4, creating sustainable old-age security programs for future generations. There are Canadians who are out of work or underemployed. At the same time, there is also a labour shortage in Saskatchewan as well as other parts of the country for some jobs. This budget contains measures to create new, high-quality jobs for Canadians while providing measures to fill vacancies through improving the temporary foreign work program if, and that's a big if, there are no Canadians to fill these positions. Since 2006, the government has pursued much-needed reforms to focus Canada's immigration system on increasing economic prosperity for Canadians. We need to move to an increasingly fast and flexible immigration system which responds to the new needs of the labour market in order to sustain Canada's economic growth. Mr. Speaker, during the pre-budget consultations, a business owner within my riding mentioned that processing times for skilled workers needed to be reduced. He also mentioned that there is too much red tape during this process. I heard that from a number of constituents. And I'm proud to say that the government listened and committed to lessen the processing time for temporary foreign workers who made application while reducing the paper burden on all employers. We propose further improvements to recognize foreign professionals such as physicians, nurses, and engineers, among other much-needed roles within the Canadian economy. Looking at the second pillar, I'd like to talk about how Budget 2012 will help to manage our resources. Mr. Speaker, my home province of Saskatchewan is blessed with many resources, which drive the economy, and there is demand for these resources worldwide. If we are to compete with other resource-rich countries, which will create some of those high-quality jobs I have mentioned, we need to put in place an effective, efficient regulatory system to review major projects. We propose to streamline the review process to encourage responsible resource development. The proposed review process will include fixed timelines and one project, one review process while introducing stronger penalties for those who violate our environmental laws. Turning to number 3, I would like to talk about how our plan will help expand trade. I'm supportive of the focus on general trade as it will create jobs for residents in my riding and in Canada. Since 2006, we have finalized 9 free trade agreements with other nations, and we continue to deepen trade agreements with other nations, including those with fast-growing economies. In fact, Mr. Speaker, a Canadian-Europe Union free trade agreement would bring a 20% boost in bilateral trade, which would create approximately 80,000 new jobs. Agriculture contributes enormously to our country's economy, with nearly $35.5 billion in exports, which makes Canada the world's 5th largest exporter of agriculture and food products. Our plan includes measures to help our farmers and ranchers succeed, which is good news for my riding, where agriculture is the #1 industry. They are succeeding partially thanks to efforts in opening markets for our Canadian beef, pork, canola, pulse crops, wheat, and more. We will continue to work on behalf of farmers and ranchers to ensure that people in other countries have access to our high-quality Canadian food. Our efforts and our successes have been well recognized by the agricultural sector. Additionally, exporters within my riding will benefit through the extending the provision of domestic financing by Export Development Canada. Mr. Speaker, turning to number 4, I'd like to take a minute to talk about the Old Age Security Program. Budget 2012 proposes changes to the OAS program to ensure it will be sustainable for future generations. Our plan outlines that changes will not be introduced until 2023, which means that seniors or those who are nearing retirement will not be affected. Our government is providing many years of lead time to allow individuals to make adjustments to their savings plan as necessary to meet their own goals and aspirations. I'd like to provide a comment from a constituent who stated when we were talking about pension, the pension reforms are acceptable, he says. Seeing the age change will only take place after 2023 or 2029, allowing the next generation to prepare and thus manage their economies of scale accordingly, end of quote. Our seniors are realists, Mr. Speaker. We are also eliminating the application process for OAS and GIS, which has been warmly received by many constituents who contacted my office. I support changes for the sustainability of the OAS program on behalf of residents in my riding who may need the OAS in future years. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I would ask all my honourable colleagues to support Bill C-38, a positive, reasonable plan which encourages job creation and growth within sound fiscal principles and without reducing transfer to persons. It is the right plan for Palliser, for Saskatchewan, and for Canada. Thanks to our elected majority government, I am excited for the opportunities facing Saskatchewan and Canada as our government works to allow for business to flourish and families and communities to grow and strengthen. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak today on behalf of the seniors of my riding, Mr. Speaker.
Questions et commentaires? Alors, la députée de La Pointe-de-l'Île.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Donc, j'ai entendu l'honorable député parler du commerce. J'ai deux questions très simples pour lui. Il ne faut pas se leurrer, notre plus grand partenaire économique pour l'instant sont les États-Unis. Je sais que le gouvernement veut se distancier, blablabla. Bon, c'est pas ça. En ce moment même, le plus grand partenaire économique, c'est les États-Unis. Le gouvernement a annoncé des coupures de 143 millions de dollars aux services frontaliers. Cela va avoir des impacts sur la sécurité des Canadiens, sur la lenteur aux frontières canadiennes et cela va affecter directement nos petites et moyennes entreprises. C'est ma première question. Donc, qu'est-ce que ces coupures-là vont vraiment faire pour améliorer le commerce avec notre plus grand partenaire commercial? Et deuxièmement, le gouvernement a annoncé des coupures de millions de dollars dans les services consulaires aux États-Unis, en Amérique du Sud et en Europe. Il parlait du traité de libre-échange avec l'Union européenne et des traités de libre-échange. Ça démontre que le Canada n'est pas du tout intéressé en coupant dans les services consulaires. Ça va affecter nos relations économiques avec des pays. Donc, j'aimerais vraiment que le membre vienne nous dire en quoi ces coupures vont vraiment permettre au Canada d'améliorer...
Alors, je dois l'interrompre dans la députée. Le temps est limité. The honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my colleague for the mini address. Very well put. I'm afraid I'm not quite sure how to respond to it, though, because changes at the border are in the state of flux. That's the best we can say. There's been nothing formulated to really exclude or include different aspects of trade with the U.S. of A. The latest information I have, they continue to be our largest trading partner, so I guess things aren't going too bad with America and Canada.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there are many aspects of the budget in which I could talk about, or many other aspects in which I could talk about in regards to the 70-plus pieces of legislation that they're changing through the back door on this budget. But there is one issue that kind of eats at a lot of Canadians, and that is an issue of credibility. You see, this Prime Minister, this Minister of Defence, have talked a great deal about the need to replace the F-18, something in which the Liberal Party agrees with. There is a need to replace the F-18. Where we disagree is in the manner in which it has been done. And there has been a great deal of deception from this government to Canadians. At some point it said $8 billion, $9 billion was going to be the cost, and we're finding out that the costs are going to be more than double that. My question to the member is, how can Canadians believe the numbers that this government is purporting to talk about when it talks about issues like the deficit, when they've really made a whole mess and there's evidence to show that they were intentionally misled Canadians on the pricing of the F-35 contract? Why should Canadians believe the budget document as being a legitimate document in the first place?
The honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm certainly glad I had the opportunity to speak first, because mini question one and mini question two pretty well has eaten up most of the time. But to answer my honourable colleague as best as I can, I would say that the F-35 is adjudicated by people that fly aircraft. We're talking fighter pilots and those that train fighter pilots, and I'm referring to Moose Jaw's 15 Wing. It trains all the pilots that are trained in Canada at that particular base. In discussion with pilots of the base, fighter jet trainers and fighter jet students, and others from the Winnipeg operation, I'm given to understand that there is no plane that equals the F-35 any which way, regardless of the fact it's a single-engine plane. I'm not a pilot, Mr. Speaker. I have to accept the word of experts. I do not profess to be an expert, but I know experts, and that's their take on it, that we as a country should be looking very carefully at that aircraft, because as far as they're concerned, it's still the best one out. As far as is the plane been tested, it's still in the developmental phases. It has not been tested. Therefore, I'm at a loss as why we would think we can put a price tag on it when it's still in the developmental processes. It's a few months away, maybe a few years away before that plane is actually on the production line. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Resuming debate.